Welcome, Simon. This is the LinkedIn Live discussion for the podcast episode number 76, where we spoke about authenticity at work and how to bring more authenticity to work. Do you want to give people kind of a brief overview of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. I'm Simon Stapleton. I'm CEO and co-founder of Truthsayers. And we're a SaaS-based business, so we provide software as a service. But what we do is we combine the advances in neuroscience, psychology, and technology to really get to the underlying truth of people, how we're really feeling, rather than what they choose to say or might feel the need to say. We actually measure what they really feel.
Yeah, and I love that about it. And we initially connected, I think, just randomly through LinkedIn, had a few great conversations, both have a shared passion, if that's the right word, for things like data and research and numbers and all of that fun stuff that there's a lot of people who don't enjoy that kind of thing. For anyone who's listening live, feel free to post in your comments. I will see them popping up in the comments box so we can answer any questions that you have. We'll be here for around 15 minutes or so talking about the podcast. If you haven't listened to the full episode, I think I put a link to it below, but if it's not there, I'll certainly put it after this LinkedIn Live so that you can see it below there and click into the full episode, which is about 45 minutes long. So we're going to kind of touch on some of the highlights today. I think one of the key things to come out, or one of the early points that we made on the podcast, was this idea that 80% of people don't feel like it's that they feel they can say that they're not okay at work, or that they're kind of, you know, I think I maybe suggested using the term lie, but that's maybe a little bit too strong. They're not fully honest about how they're really feeling at work.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't our research. That was research that was done early in the year. And it is a staggering number. 80% of people feel huge, they can't tell the truth about how they're feeling at work. So we've all done it, I'm sure. We've all been asked, how are you? And actually, just to get through the conversation or not to expose ourselves, we said, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, good. Now, if I was really honest in that situation, I'd probably say, no, feeling a bit rubbish today.
Yeah.
Feeling like the pressure's getting to me, and but actually, when you do that, you've opened up a totally different conversation, one that you probably don't want to have in the moment. And that happens day in, day out. People all over the world, in all cultures, in all societies. And so, just think how much of a problem it really is, but it's not being discussed so openly.
Yeah, no, that's it. In Ireland, we have this tendency to say grand, like, how are you feeling? Grand. You just kind of brush over it. But I've seen so many conversations recently where if people just open up about their humanity and say, actually, I'm not really having a great day today, it brings a level of vulnerability. It brings that authenticity that we were talking about, but also we can kind of connect with people. So it's not all roses from the outside. It's not all what you see on social media. There's actually something going on beneath there, where if you're not feeling great, then you can actually, relate to people a lot more, because what they're seeing on the outside, if it corresponds with how you're feeling on the inside, if you're not feeling well, and they say that they're also not feeling well.
Well, we strongly believe that authenticity is the route to happiness in the workplace. But of course, not everyone is authentic. We're all inauthentic at some point in our working life. And that's for many reasons. I mean, we touched on the podcast about psychological safety.
Yeah.
That if I don't feel safe to open up and expose my vulnerability, I'm going to keep stum about my feelings.
Yeah.
I'm going to protect myself. And so what happens then is people tend to edit who they are and bring a different self into the workplace. And some of the reasons why that might be is they want to appear to be someone different than they really are. There's a persona that gets created, and then you have to live up to that persona. And actually, it becomes more and more stressful as time goes by, because you've got to remember that persona you're creating, right? So it just becomes worse and worse and worse. And so eventually, it's most likely to break. But there are other reasons why people don't, and that is around things like confidence. That if you're feeling very unconfident about yourself and your role and how you're performing, you're not necessarily going to open up about it. And what that would mean is you probably wouldn't feel you've got the right to speak your mind. You probably wouldn't feel your opinion, your point of view is worth anything, so you don't say anything. You edit that out. And of course, when you don't feel, you don't feel like your voice is being heard because you're not expressing it, then that's just going to make your confidence even more worse. So
it's kind of nearly a self-fulfilling prophecy that you think I'm not competent enough, I don't have anything to say or anything to share. And interestingly, I don't think we even touched on the idea of imposter syndrome on the call, but that is a sure sign of like you don't feel confident enough to express your opinion, you don't think you have enough experience, you don't think your opinions are valid, and then it becoming kind of a cycle where you don't share it, so it doesn't get heard, and then it repeats itself and until it sort of spirals out of control. But that definitely sounds like imposter syndrome.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's imposter syndrome is probably not a term that everybody knows, but at some point has either felt it themselves or know people who are feeling it. And
Absolutely.
By no means am I a business psychologist. I don't claim to be a business psychologist, but what I can tell you is based on our data using our Neurotech platform that there are some things that people are comfortable talking about, and we can see where what people say and how they feel align. And those are the things where there's probably open discussion in the workplace, the psychological safety around those particular issues. There's people not feeling they're an imposter when talking about those things.
Yeah.
But then there are factors where the difference between what people say and what they feel are significant. And I mean, seriously significant.
Yeah.
Issues where somebody's saying, yeah, everything's brilliant, I'm feeling very good about this, but actually they're inside, they're really, feeling very bad. And we can pull that difference out using our platform. And that gives leaders, for those that really want to understand people, the tools to go and have the right conversations. And I don't mean the kind of pointy finger conversations. It's the well-managed conversations by people who are skilled to have them.
Yeah.
And so, using our platform, we hope we can tackle some of these issues around imposter syndrome and people not feeling that they can be heard because we give them the tool to do so.
Yes. Yeah. You can identify like on which topics. And we did touch on that actually on the podcast, that there were some surprising results from the data when you looked at it, that it's not what you necessarily would think, but some of this kind of startling things. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so one of the big surprises for us over the years we've been doing this is to look at the difference between relationships between peers and those between the manager and subordinate. And what we found is that the authenticity between peers is actually lower than that between a manager and the subordinate. And it took us a while to understand what was actually going on there, but you can picture it that when you're amongst a group of colleagues, actually, I know I've done it. You portray yourself in a particular light across the group, not necessarily on a one-to-one basis, but across the group, across your co-workers, whether it be
you have this persona,
specific team or whatever, and you sort of fall into the subculture of that team too, and you try and fit in. Of course, that damages your authenticity. Whereas between manager and subordinate, which tends to be more transactional, there are the softer sides of relationships, but they tend to be more transactional, more. I don't want to use the word honest, but the need for authenticity and perhaps the environment is such that people can be more authentic. That was a surprise because we thought people between in those relationships are going to actually edit themselves tremendously. And really try and portray themselves in a good light. But that was something we've had a consistent pattern across the organizations we've worked with.
That is really surprising because you always kind of get the impression that between, say, managers or even like a group of managers and subordinates, that there would be this us and them. Like it's it's something I've definitely experienced in the workplace. Whereas in the data that as you're describing it, it's more, I don't know, is it like a little bit more competition maybe between peers, and they need to hold themselves kind of create this front or create this stick with the persona, don't let the side down, or don't show your weakness or something like that that it's stopping them from being really authentic with each other.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the reasons are many, and one of those is the example we've given. I think the other side of it is that when you're in a team, there's it's not necessarily competition, but there's a kind of team mentality.
Yeah.
And to fit into that team mentality, there's a slight editing of yourself. And I should also say, between manager and subordinate is not necessarily the same as subordinate to the leadership group.
Okay. Yeah.
And that will be more likely to be a them and us kind of situation.
Okay.
We're talking about that single one-to-one relationship.
Okay. Yeah. That's good to know. Yeah. I'd love to know, actually, for anyone who's watching either live or watching on the replay, what your experience is. If you feel comfortable sharing your experience, but I'd love to know in the comments, your experience of what we're talking about and what you've experienced at work. I'd really, really love to know.
Yeah, I mean that's a great question, because it's part of the problem we're talking about, isn't it? How much are people prepared to open up and discuss it?
Yeah, especially on social media.
It's not anonymous, and that is a really important point. Actually, I should say, our platform does have anonymity built in. Did I say that right? Anonymity built in at the core, and so all the data privacy and everything you'd expect. Because the last thing we would want as a business tool is to expose individuals' inner feelings and their attitudes. Clearly, we have to do that in a very anonymous way.
Yeah, of course.
We have a duty to be responsible with people's data. Whereas on social media, it's completely open, isn't it?
Free for all.
If you did want to connect with me directly and if you wanted to ask me some questions or give me some feedback, then you can contact me directly.
Brilliant. Is there anything else that you want to share from any of the highlights from the podcast at all, Simon, before we kind of wrap up?
Well, actually, there's one thing I want to share. We're currently running 2 bits of research on neurodiversity in the workplace and attitudes about that. So how are people really feeling about it?
Yeah, I'd say that would be really interesting.
It's a really important area that we're hugely passionate about, because we believe the workplace should be an inclusive environment for everyone. And neurodiversity and neurodivergence is one of the, I think it's a buzzword for many people, but it's obviously been around for a long time. I think businesses now try to catch up with it. So we're testing the attitudes on that. The other research we're doing is around climate change, and we found some really interesting data so
Actual
far.
Climate change as opposed to like corporate climate change.
Well, across the board, any kind of climate change, because we're finding that there's some things that that people are quite frankly paying lip service to, about how much they're feeling they need to get involved, or it's the personal responsibility of us all. There's some things that are unanimous and really coming through consistently. For example, that there's no more science required to convince people that the climate change is happening, but also the government are not doing enough about it. So we're doing these bits of research. It'd be great if people could get involved. The links and the info's on our company page on Truthsayers Neurotech. And so, please get involved.
Brilliant. So I'm happy to share on my profile as well, because I think they're really, really important topics. And it's probably, I think, not to say that it's gone down the list of priorities, but it's not something I've heard spoken about in the workplace in a while, is this idea of climate change. So that's why I had to double check.
Yeah, well, it affects us all, doesn't it?
Or are you talking about actual climate change? I just want to give a shout out to Kim, who is watching us live, saying, I'm so happy to be able to be here listening when you're live. You are bringing such important conversations forward. So thank you so much, Kim, for commenting.
Brilliant.
Simon, if people want to reach out and connect with you, what's the best way that they can do that?
Right now,
Cheryl has shared the link to the new neurodiversity research. Thanks for sharing that, Cheryl.
Yeah, it'd be great if you could follow our company page on LinkedIn, or go to truthsayers.io, our website, which is being currently refreshed.
Brilliant.
So please be patient.
Please be patient while we update our website. Love it. And for anyone who wants to connect with me, I'm sure anyone who's watching probably connected with me already. You may have seen that I have launched my Imposter to Empowered program. So you can find out more details from me directly, or go to the website impostersyndrome.ie if you want to find out more about that. Thank you so much for everyone who joined us live. If you're catching the replay, feel free to add your comments, and myself and Simon will see them, and we will we'll be able to respond in that case. So oftentimes we don't see the comments, so maybe give us a tag if you want answers to a specific question. That would be great. So thank you so much, Simon, for your time today,
thank you, Aoife.
your time on the podcast.
Okay, thank you.